Hello, everyone. Eric Moyen here from Mississippi State. It is good to see, well, I'm not seeing, it's good to know that I'm going to be with you all, although it is online. I hope everyone is doing well and that what we've been going over the past couple of years is being implemented and that it is working to show improvement at your schools. Our faculty leadership development session today is simply a review of the SWOT and TOES analysis that we have discussed before. And so I'm going to go ahead and share a PowerPoint presentation with you. And hopefully you can see this on the screen. As I mentioned, this FLPD is a review of our SWOT TOES analysis that we have discussed. And let's see if I can get my slide to move here. So it is a review of our July-August session that we've done. And as we go through this process, I want you to just consider questions that you might have for the reflection, things that don't make sense, things that you might want further elaboration on. At any point in this, if you want to stop the video, since it's not live, you can pause it. You can write down whatever you want to so that we can get to some deeper understanding and hopefully help you along in this process. And then when we do the live session for this, please come with some questions or some ideas or some stories of progress that you've made. That would be excellent to hear. And hopefully you have started in this process, but if you haven't yet, this will be a good reminder of some of the things that hopefully you can do through the test project. All right, so the SWOT analysis, many of you have seen this, and then there are others of you who may have been in different sessions at the time. So if you haven't seen this in this form or fashion, hopefully I can give you a good review of this SWOT TOES process. Let me start by saying that a SWOT analysis simply stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so any business, any organization, any entity can do a SWOT analysis where they look at those four things. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Where are there opportunities for us? And then additionally, what are threats? What are problems that could create real harm for us and not be able to accomplish our mission and our vision and be able to exert the influence that we want to exert to do this. Now, the little graphic that I have up here, what I wanted to point out was that as you think strategically about ways to do this, on this, you'll see that your strengths and your opportunities are things that are favorable, right? Those are positive terms, and they're things that you can think about at your institution as a whole, or in the College of Education specifically, or even within a department level. These are the positive things. Hey, what are we doing really, really well? Those are our strengths. And where can we grow these? Those are your opportunities. Those tend to be things that, sometimes people don't want to brag on themselves, so they're a little slow to say, oh, I think we do this well, or I think we do that well. But it's important to be able to identify those in the process. And then the negative or harmful ones that we have on here address weaknesses and threats. And those are also things that sometimes can be difficult to get at because, we don't like to admit things that we're struggling with. And sometimes we're not very good at identifying threats that might create problems for our institution or our college or our department as we look at this. So something that I want to tie together as you think about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is that a good starting point for that may be an individual exercise where you, as the department head or department chair, identify these for your department. Or if you're working within your College of Education, what you can do is get the department heads together with the dean and bring those lists together and see where are you all thinking the same about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and where have you had some divergent thought? What are some things that one of you may have identified, but someone else hasn't? The important part about this is that you really need to be communicating as a group. And I know that you've heard a lot of that in other professional development sessions about good communication, about questioning, about listening skills. And so as you go through this SWOT analysis is a great way to employ those different things that you have already learned, because you want feedback from your faculty on this, and you want feedback from middle managers at the department level, and you want feedback from the deans as well, so that you can see where are we seeing things differently than other people might be seeing those things. And as you do that, I would recommend that you try and come up with 5 of each of these. So as you get together, say, okay, we need 5 strengths, we need 5 weaknesses, we need 5 opportunities, and we need 5 threats, and come to a consensus on those. Because as you develop consensus, that really helps with team building, and it really helps for people to be able to identify, right, where it is that we as an institution or as a college of ed or as a department want to go with this. So however you set those meetings up, they need to be regular meetings where you are encouraging feedback and you are learning what other people are thinking about these things and developing consensus in that process. But one other thing that I wanted to point out that I think is good to know, but it's not essential, on this graph that you see, it lists opportunities and threats as external, right? Your strengths and your weaknesses are things that generally are internal. They have to do with things that you're doing really well or things that you might not be doing as well within the college of ed that you're in, whereas your opportunities and threats are viewed as external. Where can you go out and do those things? I think that's a good way to look at this, but it's also important to remember that you don't need to get caught up in that. If there are opportunities that you see that are within your department or within the teacher training program that you have, then be sure to focus on those. You don't have to say, oh, these are external, therefore we cannot discuss them in this same way, or these are internal. Those can blend or bleed over a little bit into each other. So that's just something to remember. All right. So this is a pretty standard practice. It's been around for a long time. But what is newer in this process is the idea of adding a TOES to your SWOT analysis. TOES is just putting the same letters in a different order. So you're looking at your threats, your opportunities, your weaknesses, and your strengths. And as you can see on the slide that I've placed here, the idea behind this graphic is that the TOES part of this analysis asks you to combine or think about 2 things together. So you've got your 5 strengths and you have your 5 opportunities. So if you look in the boxes where those are, to the right of or just below where it says TOES on that analysis, what you want to do is take your strengths and your opportunities and essentially put those in one list together and identify which ones provide the best way to move forward. Because if you say, oh, we have these strengths and they are very closely related to opportunities that you might have, then that is an area where you can see real growth, right? And so then you do that and you go through and you identify those. And again, this is really important that this occurs in an atmosphere where there's open dialogue with everyone. However you want to set those various meetings up, where you can say, we've got these strengths, they're very closely aligned with these opportunities, so we know this is where we really think we can make impact as we try and move forward. Then what you do is you take your strengths and you combine them with your threats. And you say, oh, here's a real challenge for us. Whether it's the accreditation process or whether threats are other proprietary institutions that may be trying to pull students from you, or whether your threats are, and again, this is an example of where threats are supposed to be external, but they could be internal. Oh, we don't do this part of our program well, therefore might not be able to impact students in the same way that we can. And what you want to do with those threats is you say, okay, where can our strengths best mitigate those threats or keep those threats at bay so that they don't become problematic for us? And so you see where the things that you're doing well can help make sure that the threats don't create greater problems for you. And then once you've created that list, you go and you look at your weaknesses and you see where our weaknesses are aligned or not aligned with our opportunities. So, right, you may say, hey, we have a real opportunity. We've been part of this test project. We've helped develop this brand new curriculum. We're moving forward on all of these things. So that's an opportunity. But our weakness is, wow, we have a number of instructors who are teaching classes that are outside of their excuse me, outside of their content area. And that may keep us from making the most of this opportunity that we have. And then finally, you can look at your weaknesses and your threats. This one is not a whole lot of fun because when you look at your weaknesses and your threats, what you're examining is what are the things that we don't do well and how could that harm us the most? So in some ways, it's kind of like, wow, this is not the fun part of this activity, but you want to be able to identify those in order to make sure that you're aware of where those are and you can improve upon your situation in that regard. So once you put all of those boxes together, probably the best way to move forward from that point is focus on your strengths and your opportunities, right? That's the box of this whole process where you say, this is where we can grow. This is where we can impact our students and our teacher training institutes. This is where we can do the most good for the most people. And at the same time, you don't want to forget about the other boxes here that might create challenges or problems. So it's always good to know what you're really good at. And it's also really good to know where you struggle so that you can work on both of those at the same time in the process. So that's a little bit about this. Now, I will say, I think it's important that as you go through your SWOT and TOES analysis that you remember, and I mentioned some of this earlier, you need to combine these with other concepts that you've learned. So one is communication and your listening skills and questioning, right? Another thing might be, okay, we sat through this session either on a day in late July or in early August, and we thought, oh, this is really good. We need to do this. Well, have you moved forward with that? Have you been able to do that? And all the discussions that we've had around PLCs, that's a great place to engage in this process. Or if you know that faculty are doing this work in their PLCs and you're part of the leadership as a dean, as a department chair, or even higher up, where in our leadership sessions are we listening to what our faculty is saying to us about here's where things are going really, really well, and here's where we might be struggling. And then the next thing is goal setting. So in all of these things, right, here's one of the great challenges of a SWOT TOES analysis is that you hear about it, you come up with some ideas, and it gets set on a shelf somewhere, and nobody is doing anything with that. So in order to make this exercise effective, where you can move forward and make positive change, you want to set some goals for yourself. Once you've identified your strengths and place those with your opportunities, say, okay, by next May, we are going to have done X, Y, and Z. And then when you think about, okay, this is where we want to be, what do we have to do in the process to be able to say, by May, we have done X, Y, and Z? What meetings do you need to set up? What kinds of things do you need to implement? What kind of policies need to be passed? All of those different items need to be addressed so that you can be looking out. And of course, the idea in the long term is that you're looking at this. Where do we want to be in 5 years? Okay, so if we want to be here in 5 years, we need to do this by year one. We need to do this by year two. And so those are the kind of things you want to be thinking about. And then final reflection, just a couple questions. When you come to the live session, be thinking about, what have you identified in this analysis that's working well? And then this question of, how are you moving forward with that? So those are the important things in this review that I think will really help you in the process of meeting the goals that you want and doing what you want to do. So thank you so much for your time. Again, it's been a pleasure. And I look forward to hearing what you have to think about all of these things. Thanks so much. Bye.